So we'll get started. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Kicking Ass with Tanner Stone. Today we have President Cam Howser on the podcast.
What's up, guys? My name is Cam Howser. I am the president of the Professional Business Fraternity at Florida Atlantic University. Junior studying in finance with a concentration in risk management and insurance.
The reason I wanted to have Cam on the podcast, really, we'll go back a little bit. I wanted Cam on yesterday, like the day before. We've been trying to get together for a little while, but I live in Tampa and I'm back home for the break until Wednesday. And I just got this mic back and we missed the plug, but we're finally here and I'm really happy about that. And the reason I wanted to have Cam on is because I admire how you're from Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You came from Chicago, you came to Florida, you didn't know anybody, right?
Yeah.
And you've paved a path for yourself, and now you're the president of a business fraternity, Delta Sigma Pi, and you're not a big drinker, you're not in the drugs, and I feel like it's really hard for a college student to go to college and avoid all the partying and everything and find their place. So just take me back to how you grew up. Like, were you a shy kid and how you became this confident, successful person?
Yeah, so I would say so I was a big video game player when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, I'm not like grown up yet or anything like that, but I'm definitely getting there. I would say though, when I was growing up, I was generally more of a shy kid. I wasn't like super outgoing when it came to stuff. I had my moments, whether it was like at sports games, like playing baseball. I was a baseball player for 14 years, like ever since I could. And when it came to like being on a baseball field, I was super outgoing, super loud, like always kind of like the team lead. But then when it came to kind of every other aspect of my life, I was, a little bit shy, a little bit more sit back and observe. And I kind of didn't want that for myself anymore. So that was one of the entire reasons I like wanted to branch out and, you know, get involved with something other than my friends that I had been friends with, dating back to preschool. I had this is really, really established friend group my entire life. And I always found myself like wanting a little more, wanting to branch out, wanting to, potentially find something that was a little bit better than the friends. Since a lot of times when you're young, you have friends that you are simply friends with because you're like close in proximity to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not really, you know, the same values or the same ideas as them, but you just kind of stick around because, you've been friends for so long. And when I decided to come down to school in Florida, it was because I wanted to branch out. I wanted to, you know, learn a little bit more about myself because I hadn't really done any internal learning. I had done more of the follow what everybody else is doing.
What do you mean internal learning?
Yeah. So, what I mean by internal learning, I would say, is being a little bit more reflective on my actions and, looking instead of trying to blame others for the way that I was, where I would just like kind of sit in my room and play video games a lot. Um, Instead, internally reflect on my actions and question, why am I like this? Why are things this way? And it kind of hit me eventually that it was because of my actions I wasn't really branching out. I wasn't, getting the experiences that I wanted.
Was there a certain moment in your life where you had that flip, that the flick that switched and just made you realize that I shouldn't be playing video games anymore? I should probably start being a little more outgoing.
Yeah, so I would say when I actually met my girlfriend, so I was like not a partier at all in high
Mm-hmm.
school. I didn't even touch a drink until I was 17. Like back end of junior year, like going into senior year of high school, I had never like touched a drink or smoked or anything like that. I was pretty pretty easygoing when it came to that stuff. So when I finally went to like my first party ever, and I actually met my girlfriend at this party, um, it really, because I had such a positive experience associated with going out, where I was able to meet the girl that I was crushing on for a while.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it really exposed me to the positive ideas.
Getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like was not supposed to go to the party at all. I was just super nervous, but a bunch of my friends were going, so I was like, all right, I might as well go. And when I ended up getting there, I saw the girl who's now my girlfriend that I had been crushing on for like 2 years. But I just never had like the confidence to go up to her or anything. But midway through the night, she came up to me and started talking to me. And, as we say now, is barbecue chicken from there.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was, as soon as we started talking, all of a sudden, like 3 hours went by. And just because I had such a positive experience associated with getting out of my comfort zone and trying something new, um, it really opened my eyes to kind of the hole that I had dug myself, but also opened the ability for me to like get out of that hole.
So if that first experience was a negative experience, would that change everything, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. Just because I feel like everybody obviously values their personal experience a lot more than the things that they hear from somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, if your parents were telling you, not to do drugs or something like that, but you had only had positive experiences with it, it really changes your perception on it, because even though your parents are trying to
Or if your
instill,
friends went to the party and said, you won't like this party.
yeah,
But then you
exactly,
go and you met.
right.
Yeah.
So when you have these outside factors like trying to instill good values on you, but you have positive experiences with generally negative things, whether it's like drugs or alcohol or like sleeping around or something like that, where you only have positive experiences associated with that, it's really hard for you to change your values because you think that you know what's best for you, right? And so if I didn't have a really positive experience during that first time, I mean, I personally can say without a doubt I would be a totally different person nowadays. I don't think I would be in Florida. I don't think
So
that,
that party made you want to get out of the state?
yeah, it really did, because that was my first time like meeting people outside of my friend group.
Mm.
A lot of times I would meet people by my friends kind of like bringing them into the
Mutual,
friend group.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and because that had worked out so well for me, like previously with meeting so many good people, um, I just kind of like, let it happen. And, after the first positive experience of not only meeting my girlfriend, but also meeting great people at the party, it really like opened my eyes to what I wanted to do. And it kind of like set me on this path of gaining confidence and trying to get out there and get involved with as many things as I could, just because I had no clue what I wanted to do when I was coming out of high school. And I'm not saying a lot of people do, but you have some people going into like being a doctor or being a lawyer or something where you have to like commit a lot of time and effort and energy to. Um, and I just like hadn't even thought that far ahead. So it was kind of like an all encapsulating moment after that first party to ultimately set me on a path that, put me where I am today.
So would you say that it's better to live in the moment or live to always look for a path that you're supposed to be on?
I would say a little bit of both. And the reason I say that is because you don't want to be aimlessly going, just like living in the moment, because there is such a thing as being too fluid and just going with the punches, right? I would say you want to have a healthy amount of goals, and goals that are lofty but you can also realistically achieve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be real. If either of us said that we wanted to make $1 million by the end of 2025, well, how do we do that, right? So it's all about setting the little goals in order to ultimately reach the big goal. And I think it's very reasonable to, kind of roll with stuff as it's thrown at you. But at the same time, you should also make sure that you are kind of moving towards a common goal at the end of the day, because if you don't have any motivation or discipline to accomplish something, um, a lot of people, myself included, when I was playing video games a lot, could feel a little bit of like meaningless when it comes to like life in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Before the podcast, we were talking that you used to stream, you used to do some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Would you say that streaming helped your confidence to where you are now?
yeah. I streamed um, during COVID, so this was like sophomore year going into junior year, and once again, I really only had like positives associated with streaming. I didn't really generate like a huge following or anything, but I generated a lot of like consistent, loyal viewers that would come back and like interact with me and almost like virtual friends, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so streaming, I feel as though it really did allow me to like kind of step up my confidence level a little bit, just because before streaming, I had no like social skills really. I was not able to hold a conversation very well, and having to be entertaining for 3 or 4 hours on end while you're streaming
Yeah.
to try to attract viewership and maintain those viewers, it really forces you to like try to be creative and like keep viewers involved. And it's very similar to like having small talk with somebody, just because you need to keep somebody, whether you're talking to one person or many people, engaged in the conversation, or else it's kind of like trying to talk to somebody is like trying to pull teeth out. It just doesn't work sometimes. And I'm sure you've had experiences with people where it's so incredibly tough to like hold a conversation with them.
Sometimes on the podcast too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, and it's so tough to, maintain a conversation. It just gives you a really, really bad perception of them.
Hmm.
Whether they're like a great person, great values, whatever. But that is like kind of your gateway into them, right? Is their ability to talk with you, to connect with you, to communicate. And so, kind of tailoring back to your question, I think it really, really created this kind of like stepping stone for me, to be able to actually like step out of my comfort zone. That was kind of like the first step, was doing that, because it was something I was already kind of comfortable with, but now I had people watching me do it, right?
Hmm.
And it really kind of generated this false sense of confidence in a way, because even though I had this confidence, I wasn't really applying it. It's very easy to talk to somebody through a screen, but when it comes to actually utilizing those skills out in the real world, it's a totally different ballgame.
When you came to FAU,
Mm-hmm.
how did you go from talking to people virtually to talking to people in real life, and how did you keep that confidence up?
Yeah, so it's kind of like, my sports background, where you just need to get reps up, right?
Hmm.
One of the things that we do for recruitment is go out in the breezeway on FAU's campus and just get shots up and try to talk to as many people as possible, because we're trying to get the word out there, right? You can't sell a product that people don't know about. So when it comes to us, obviously, when people think about like social life, they think about social fraternities. So when it comes to us, we're already kind of fighting an uphill battle, because when people come down to like Florida, school that's 2 miles away from the beach,
Yeah.
a lot of people have these intentions of, wanting to be super duper social and wanting to join like IFC, like frat and sorority life. So when it comes to us, it's really, really tough for us to get recruits in general, just because we're not really at the school where the demographic is like wanting to be professional and whatnot. So circling back to your question, it's all about getting those reps up and getting yourself out there. You just need to do it one time and then do it again and again and again and again. And eventually, maybe those first experiences that you have aren't really that great, but doing it over and over again allows you to kind of trial by error, figure out what works, figure out what doesn't, and then you just continue to do what works and kind of build on that. And that is something that, really, really was kind of one of my values when I came down here. I didn't really try to, actually fulfill it. It's kind of like do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I didn't actually do it really the first year. I was, I kind of reverted back to those old habits of just sitting in my room playing video games, like maybe interacting with a couple people.
And do you think you having a girlfriend, because you still have a girlfriend, same girlfriend,
Yeah.
and you had her, you guys were doing long distance.
Yeah.
So would you say that was a positive or negative thing when you were at a different school?
I've really only had positive experiences with long distance. And the reason I say that
You
is
told me this when I first met you as well.
right.
Yeah.
Um, if she ever ends up watching this, I love you and I appreciate you. But one of the reasons that I think long distance has been really, really beneficial to me is because when I was coming down here, I was trying to have a fresh start. I was trying to almost reinvent myself. And, having a person that you're already associated with and very, very comfortable with come down with you would almost be more of a hamper than an actual like foundation. And the only reason I say that is because when you already have that structure in place where you have this person you are able to rely on and you're super, super comfortable with, it makes it in a way where it's really, really tough to branch out because of that comfort level that you associate with them.
Mhm.
And when I came down here, it was a really, really tough decision because, I was 9 months into the relationship at the time and I really like had visions of it going further. And obviously it did. But at the time, you don't know what's going to happen. And so it's kind of one of those decisions where you think, all right, am I choosing school over my relationship? Right.
But if the
And
trust is there, then any decision is okay.
yeah, exactly. And with like the current like generation we're in where you know there's a lot of media out there where it's like if your boyfriend or girlfriend is doing this they're
Exactly.
cheating on you, and it takes a long time, especially when you are so used to being together and always being able to spend time together, to go from that all the way to we are now 21 hours away from each other and our only form of connection and communication is through FaceTime or iMessages or like Snapchat videos. So it was a totally different dynamic shift. And I think that was really, really beneficial to me because it was kind of the one thing that I could have relied on, like coming down here. And because I didn't have anything, it really, really forced me, as much as I did not like it, to actually get out there and get involved with others.
But would you, in the beginning of the relationship, no, not in the beginning, but when you came down here, would you say that you would FaceTime her a lot and stay in your room and be on the phone? Because you said nowadays you have all these ways of connecting with someone long distance. Would that stop you from getting out and talking to people?
I like that you brought that up because it is very, very easy to fall back on that comfort person, right?
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned before, we had all these different ways of communicating and we would utilize every single one of them. So, it was definitely an adjustment period because we went from talking and kind of utilizing social media and these messaging platforms as kind of our secondary form of
Mm-hmm.
contact, and now it's our primary form of contact. So in that adjustment time we were kind of overusing it where we would talk for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, right? And especially at the start of a relationship, it's very, very easy to, always be learning something new about a person and always wanting to talk to them. But then you get, a year, 2 years, even 3 years now into it, where you gain this understanding of them. And while it's not necessarily that there's not more stuff to learn about them, it's you have to be, very creative in what you're learning about them. And so when it came to the usage of social media, it did like provoke me to stay in my room and try to fall back on that comfort person as much as I possibly could. But eventually, you kind of get bored of doing the same thing over and over again.
100%.
And you crave something new, and it just takes that small step to get out there and change that. And I feel like when I actually ended up joining DSP, it was kind of like not necessarily a small step but a major step for me to actually get out there.
Before we get to you joining DSP, I wanted to go back to when you were in high school. You said your first experience going out was super positive. You met your girlfriend and everything. And then we went to your first year in college, how you kind of stayed in your room. You just fell back into old habits. When you finally went out of those old habits, let's say your second year you did it,
Yeah.
was it another amazing experience?
Yeah. So funny enough, my second like really, really great experience, getting out there was
I met my second girlfriend.
no. Yeah, that would be funny. But I think, the second great experience I had getting out there was when I started to play basketball, like
Mhm.
pretty frequently. I would, go to the rec and start to meet people that I would never have had the chance to meet if I just didn't take that little step out. And then you kind of gain momentum when you start meeting people where it's really, really hard to stop. And then I joined the FAU basketball group chat that we were both in at the time.
I started that.
Exactly.
I don't even go to FAU.
Yeah, right. You just like wanted people to
Yeah.
play ball with. But then I took that next step with something that I was already a little bit comfortable with and started going to the outside courts, not the rec courts anymore. And that's when I met you.
Yeah.
And with those positive experiences kind of stacking up, right? And really, really, really making it where I had not had one singular bad experience of meeting new people. Just it provoked me to want to meet more and more people.
I feel like it's a sign from the world telling you you keep doing these great things and just keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that one fateful night when we met, it was awesome because it was something that I was already comfortable with, and it opened doors for me to meet new people.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously now we're great friends, and we have a really, really good friend group that I was like kind of integrated into. And it was all because I took that one little step, to get out of that comfort zone and ultimately try something new that was also associated with something I was comfortable with.
I'm trying to do that right now at University of Tampa. I just finished my first semester. And for the people like me who don't like partying, don't like drinking, how can we get out there? Because right now I'm going to the basketball courts, but there's people there that don't even go to University of Tampa that just play, and they're not really fun kids to be around. And I don't think that a frat is the best for me because I don't enjoy partying and stuff.
Yeah.
So what's your advice for people like me?
Yeah. So I guess my question to you then would be like, what are your specific interests that you could either see yourself going professionally or more so like a hobby? What would you say your kind of like thoughts would be?
Right now, I'm really focused on doing the modeling, which we talked about before the podcast.
Yeah.
And I met some kids through modeling. I met this kid named Jaden who I hung out with before this.
Yeah.
But he's from Miami, which stinks.
Yeah.
But all right, that answers your question, so I won't go
Right.
deeper.
So I would say, kind of tap into that, right? Because similar to when I met you guys, it was something that I was comfortable with. It was something that I was looking to pursue because I really had not played basketball much before coming down to Florida. And when I found this new hobby, and it opened me up to an entirely new community of people, um, it allowed me to, explore myself. And I feel like that would be something that I would like invite you to do, is maybe modeling is like your profession, right? But finding that hobby that, you can share with others, right? Um, like me and Andre, we really, really, really like football. And like that's something
Yeah,
that we connect over, right? Um, Now, obviously, you are not like an avid sports watcher, I would say, but
UFC.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So maybe being able to go to like a UFC watch party on campus would be good, or getting involved with a club that is associated with some of your interests, because then it surrounds you with people who also have those interests. And that's not, like the sole decider of if you and the other person would be friends, but it gives you a talking point that you can open up with and, really break the ice. And then after that, you're able to learn a little bit more about the other person you're talking to, like on a personal level, instead of just about the hobby. Um,
I mean, it took us a bit to go from basketball friends to friends.
exactly, right? The hobby is kind of the opener,
Hmm.
but being a great person is kind of like the continuance, right? It's very, very similar to like somebody who's really good looking. Um, you're obviously attracted to them, but the personality is kind of what keeps you coming around, right? And it's the same deal with like hobbies,
And that was a good connection right there.
right?
Yeah.
Hobbies are something that, there's something that you can share with somebody. It's kind of like that attraction. But then the actual people that like do the hobbies are the thing that keep you coming back, right? You could connect with 3 or 4 people and you create a 5-man rec team to play in like an adult league. Um, and so that I would say that would be like one suggestion I would do. And it's the same like path I did. I was looking to like gain a little bit more professional experience. And it was something that a couple of my buddies were already a part of. So you had that familiarity, but then also opening yourself to new connections that you can have. And now some of my best buddies are actually in my fraternity. And I would have never met them if I didn't, try to assess what I was interested in and then utilize the ideas that I like wanted to pursue with those organizations that I'm not part of.
Hmm. What's your major right now that you're doing? We talked about it before the podcast, but you could tell the viewers.
Yeah, so I am a junior in finance with a concentration. I'm getting a certification in risk management and insurance.
Hmm.
It's something that my brother just told me that, oh, it'll look great if you have that, because a lot of companies are looking for that right now.
So, how'd you go from a video game player to trying to learn so much about finance and business?
Um, Being like a gamer, I guess it really, really provoked like my thought and want to, be really analytical. A lot of the video games I was interested in were very like strategy based or tactical. Like I was a huge Call of Duty player, and obviously it's, a game where you like are, shooting it and, you know killing
Yeah.
people, right? But it's one of those things where it provokes your mind to, try to figure out the most efficient way to do something, whether it's like using the best guns in the game or finding the best paths to get you to, strong points on the map. um, and that directly translated over to also my love for football. I love football, and one of the things that I really, really like about football is like the data behind it. um,
You're a big fantasy guy, would you say?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a huge fantasy football guy. And one of the things that is directly associated with fantasy football is like obviously the averages that players have and whatnot. But I like to kind of take it a little bit deeper, and, utilize the analytics to, see what players are potentially going to be breaking out over the next year. And being able to assess their play not only based on like the actual ability that they have that you can see, but then also kind of cross referencing it with the analytical numbers that they are putting up compared to the other players in the league. And so with that, finance was kind of like the middle ground for everything. It connected the strategy of video games and it connected the data analysis of like my fantasy football love. And it was kind of like an all-encompassing thing that kind of directly correlated to money, which everybody loves money.
Mm-hmm.
And I would implore everybody to at least have a baseline understanding of financial literacy, just because I guess my question to you then would be to kind of see like your financial literacy. If you were to win the lottery right now, what would be the first thing that you would do?
I would probably go to a financial advisor on what to do with the money,
Yeah, because
or go to someone who knows money, or my parents or something like that. Like, what do I do?
right, because a lot of people, when they don't have money and they turn around and are just like thrown at a life-changing amount of money, like an unbearable amount of money, they don't know what to do with it.
Exactly.
And a lot of people, like, I believe there's a statistic out there where it's like 40% or something like that of people who win the lottery end up broke. It's the
A
same
lot of
thing.
NBA players end up
Yeah,
broke.
it's the same thing with NBA and NFL players. I mean, like a good portion of them, and I say a good portion because I don't know the direct statistic, a good portion of them are broke or bankrupt like 3 to 5 years out of the league.
Because I feel like these NBA players and NFL players, they could only be a player for so long, and then they have to start building their brand, and
Right.
then transfer that money they get from NFL or NBA into another brand and put it through to something else.
Right. I mean, the average career of an NFL player is 3.5 years, right?
The whole career.
Yeah, that's the average because obviously you have, the tip of the iceberg, like the Patrick Mahomes, the Tom Brady's, where they are the best of the best at their position and they get paid.
Damn, I didn't know it was so short.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, I mean, Tom Brady was very, very, very well known for his longevity. And he played for like 21, 22 years. And that's like the longest you can really possibly play. But because it's such a physically demanding game, you know, if a player has one major injury, now obviously like
It changes
surgeries,
them
yeah,
forever.
exactly. And so because of that, with the not only the lack, like the shortened careers in the NFL, but then on top of that, many players don't come from money, right? It's like they're making it big. But because they don't come from money, they don't have the education on money, whether it's from somebody that's close to them, like you were saying, like your parents. Because they don't have the education,
Guidance.
exactly, they, not all of them, but some of them don't understand what to do with the money and they want to live the lavish lifestyle. But the thing is about an NFL career, it's so short, you have to capitalize on it when it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to save that money and be able to live off of the passive income as opposed to, spewing out all this money and, having to resort to a 9 to 5, right? Any NFL player that's in the league for 3.5 years can retire, right? If they were to just baseline, put it into a high yield savings account that returns at 3.5 to 4%, they would be making anywhere between $65,000 to $80,000 a year off of the $2 million that they would make from their 3-year career. And so with that, they would be able to live a pretty, standard life. Then obviously invest any of the money they don't use in a year. But that's the thing that some players don't understand is that they can do that. They have the means and funds to do that, but they just have to be smart about it from the start, right? And tailoring it all back to the question was, why did I go into finance? Because I never want to be that person. I never wanted to be the person that did not understand money, because money legitimately is what makes the world go round,
Mm-hmm.
right? Money while it doesn't, solve problems, it alleviates problems for sure. And I wanted to make sure that I was always in a position where I would be able to utilize the money that I have to the maximum ability so that way I never really have to worry about it.
So right now you're just doing it for the education, not really as a financial advisor job. You just want to, if you got really rich one day, which I know you will, you know what to do with that money.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have an understanding and a foundation of it before you're able to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was talking to you about before the podcast, it's having an understanding is one thing, but then being able to apply it is a totally different thing. So I'm trying to establish that understanding right now by going to school for it. So that way, when it comes time for me to actually apply those principles and ideas, while I might not be perfect at the start, I'll definitely be much better than the person who doesn't have any education. And not saying that, people can't do it just by like learning through the trials and tribulations, but, setting yourself up for success starts with being like smart in that area or even being the smartest person in the room. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to do when I went to school is try to become as smart and as knowledgeable as possible in the area.
And now going back to the question that I've been waiting to ask you, how did you get in the business fraternity and how has it helped you get smarter and get a better education?
Yeah, so obviously business is more than ever. It's not about what you know, it's who you know, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is a, phrase
I
that
hear it all the time.
really anybody
All with
says, right?
modeling as well.
Exactly. And when I started to kind of look at the path that I was going on, and I had no experience within the like corporate business world. You know, a lot of times people our age have these part-time jobs that are, just to have money to pay for rent or groceries
Mm-hmm.
or just disposable income. Um, and so I wanted to kind of like level up my ideology and, surround myself with people that would one day eventually not only be my peers, but I would be able to have those connections to fall back on if I was ever in a time of struggle. And I was able to tap into that network so that way I could potentially, get back on track a lot easier. So when it came, wanting to join a organization on campus. I thought it was a great decision to do it just because one, I already knew some people in there and they were pretty smart people. So they had kind of established the credibility already for the professional business fraternity before I had even, walked into a single event. But then after going to the events and being able to network and connect with the people that were in it, it's very clear that these people had different goals in mind than the usual people at FAU. Now, I'm not saying this applies to everybody at FAU, but generally speaking, people come to FAU for the social aspects of it, whether it's going to the beach or going out to clubs or going to parties or um, just being able to like kind of utilize the weather and it just
Mm-hmm.
being like a vacation spot.
Yes.
A lot of these people were there not only for those reasons, because obviously, you need to have fun and you need to have ways to, handle stress and blow off steam. But then it was also, they were here to better themselves. They were here to establish those
Get out of their
connections.
comfort zone.
Exactly. Just like what I was trying to do. And so when I first went into it, I, went in with the fear of, being rejected and whatnot. But then about two events into it, I realized that everybody I had talked to was in the same position that I was in when they were trying to get in the fraternity, right? Every single person in there understood the position I was in. And so it really kind of like set me at ease trying to get into that because I understood that everybody knew what I was going through and they were all very welcoming and wanting to help. And so wanting to join it, it really boiled down to wanting to get out there, but more importantly, try to set myself up for future success by doing something right now to establish that network, to establish, something on my resume that could really reflect the person that I wanted to be. And so with that, it came time to, join it. And I was fortunate enough to get into it. And throughout my time in it, I have seen so much personal growth
Through
over,
yourself?
yeah, 100%. Over the 1 year that I'm in it, or I've been in it, I have seen so much personal growth, whether it is being able to talk to people because I've thrown into those social situations every single time I go to an event, or being able to analyze things based on the professional speakers that come in and give us a little glimpse into the corporate world. Just being exposed to these experiences that I had never been exposed to, one, but then also these experiences that I would have never actually had the opportunity to be a part of if I didn't take that step. Right. And so, long story short, I think it's been one of the most beneficial experiences I have had to date, being in it, just because of the opportunities it has presented me, the network it has given me, and most importantly, the friendships that I've been able to have because I was in it.
And as the president, is your goal right now to try to find other people like how you were and help people get out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, so right now, I would say one of my main goals is to really foster the brotherhood within the fraternity, because I noticed this when I came in, but I wasn't really in a position to do anything about it. Was there were a lot of like kind of friend groups within, because people, they tell their friends, "Oh, you should join this." And then because they already had that established connection within it, it's very easy, like I was saying way back when, it's very easy to fall back on those connections you already have
Mm-hmm.
and not really branch out. And so, being one of my main goals for my entire presidency is to foster the brotherhood and make sure people are more connected within the fraternity. Because, as you know, it's very, very easy to be connected with people across the world now with the usage of social media and technology. But it's very easy to be disconnected with people around you because, unfortunately, with the usage of that, everybody is more concerned about, their perception and like how people view them outside of real life, when they don't really experience any of the things within real life. And so,
Wow, that was deep.
right.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to applying it to the fraternity, I want to put people in those social situations where they have to put the phones down, where they have to interact with each other, because that was something that I really stressed to myself when I joined, and it really, really benefited me. And even though I can't force people to do it, I can't force people to show up, but I can open those opportunities for people to capitalize on them, because at the end of the day, it's something that I was looking for, and it was something that DSP brought to me. And now I'm trying to give that opportunity to the people who are already in it, but then also the people who are potentially joining it through recruitment and whatnot.
That was a great answer, by the way.
Yeah.
But before we finish up, it was great talking to you. What would your biggest piece of advice be to someone like, let's say, your past self, someone who is just coming to a college campus, doesn't know anybody, maybe will go back into their old habits of staying in their room? What would you say to someone like that?
Yeah. So I guess my overall message that I've been like kind of preaching throughout has been getting involved,
Hmm.
because as hard as it is, once you have that one positive experience, or you have that one person in the organization you're trying to join, kind of, take you under their wing and really try to involve you within the organization, it's so easy to be able to flourish, just because you are surrounded by people who have very like-minded mindsets. And surrounding yourself with people that want to be or are already where you want to be, it gives you, kind of a baseline of what you need to do and how you need to do it. And then obviously you'll learn throughout your personal experiences, but surrounding yourself with people who you want to be like is really, really impactful. And obviously, that was one of the reasons that I joined DSP in the first place, was to try to be around people that were where I wanted to be. I wanted to level up, and I wanted to, take that next step in life, because unfortunately college isn't forever, and you're not able to, you know, go to school forever.
You have to make the
Obviously,
most of it.
right. You can go back and, be a master's student and whatnot. That's not what I'm saying. It's more so, you know, you have 4 years in college. What are you going to do with it, right? Are you going to be like me freshman year and just kind of waste it? Um, like my parents, I'm fortunate enough to where my parents are assisting me throughout. And so, in a way, I was just wasting their money, right? Because college is not only about the education you receive, but it's also about the experiences you receive. And when it came time for reflection on my first year, I hadn't really experienced anything that I, you know, couldn't have done at home, right? So,
Like living alone's already huge.
yeah, right. I mean, it really forced me to, do all those chores, be a grown adult almost, and just like kind of throw you out into the wild for that. Um, so yeah, when it comes to being in college, it boils down to trying to get involved, making sure you are kind of seizing every opportunity that's thrown at you. And most importantly, understanding that you only have a limited time in college. And so, with that, trying to do as much as you possibly can within that time, because instead of looking back on it, if you didn't do anything, you're going to look back on it appreciative of not only the connections that you've been able to make, but also the experiences you're able to look back on and understand that that was you growing, that was you evolving, and being able to take that to the next step when you are out of college.
Throughout this whole conversation with you, I feel like the big message that I got was just try it out.
Right.
Because you try these experiences that you never even knew what would happen. You're basically getting thrown in the wild at the party, at college, at the fraternity, and they all became amazing experiences. So I feel like for the people watching, they should just try it out because they never know what might happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But I had an amazing time talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course.
And yeah,
Yeah,
it was
thank
great.
you.
Thank you.